Would you listen to that Dinner in Hell band?
Oh my God, let's take it in easy. I mean, the band's rocking, but we'll be nice and smooth.
Can we get the house lights down just a little bit?
Let's just listen to them play as a machine, just a singular machine for a second. You can keep clapping. Nice.
I like this kind of nice, soft ambiance we got going in here.
Yeah, let's take the band down. Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Well, welcome back. Here we are. You know what? You clicked on the link to hear the show. It's the Dinner in Hell podcast.
And welcome back for another exciting edition of the Dinner in Hell podcast, where we, two amateur historians, talk about the atrocious underbelly of history. I am one of those amateur historians, Brad the Impaler, and with me, as always, the man known as Ron of Maiden.
That is me. Thank you for the nice introduction, Brad the Impaler.
Ron, what are we going to be getting into tonight?
Well, today, we're going to go all the way back in time. Not in time, but in history. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is a history-based program.
Yeah.
And today, on this episode, we'll be discussing one of the most famous sackings of Rome. Both professional and amateur historians would call this sacking the turning point in the fall of the Roman Empire, taken by a Visigoth army led by King Alaric. We're talking 410 AD.
This isn't the only time Rome has ever been sacked. And it frankly, it won't be the last. But it really does mark, you know, when people say the end of an era.
Yeah.
This is the end of an era. The Eastern Roman Empire is a completely different story. That lasts for another 1,000 years.
What you're saying is the Roman Empire actually becomes divided at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay.
But the Byzantine or the Eastern Roman Empire, that keeps trucking. But the Western Empire, after Rome is sacked here, is only around for another 50 or so years before it's completely gone. And this event really marks that terminal decline. It marks when everyone around the world would have known.
And the Romans were considered the most civilized society, right? The most...
Yes, but by a long stretch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after the Roman Empire receded in the West and in Europe, but I mean, the next period of time after the late antiquity is often referred to as the Dark Ages for a reason. Because culture took a giant step back. Technology took a giant step back.
Because, like, a government and everything wasn't there to keep everything in line. It was just kind of spinning out of control.
Yeah, it was very tumultuous. They didn't have the skills or the accrued knowledge that the Romans had.
So picture that. Take yourself back to that era and think of like how life is. You know, life's pretty good. We got like nice freaking...
The peak of civilization.
Yeah.
It had never been better before that, ever.
Like, this is pretty badass right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that gets obliterated.
Yeah,
eventually.
It's hard to imagine. It seems like all the time history always goes forward. The event, the sacking of Rome, really delineated when the terminal decline occurred, and everybody knew it. So, even though it was around for a little while after this, it was obvious that they were extremely weak. They couldn't really defend themselves, and they didn't have control over vast portions of the territory that they claimed were theirs. And it's interesting to think of the peak of civilization regressing, because it did. The period after this was referred to for a long time as the Dark Ages. It seems like technology always improves. It seems like culture always improves, expands, and evolves. And if you look at it on a long enough time scale, that's true.
Right.
But it has dips too. And after this happened, the world was gearing up for a big dip.
So this event, this sacking of Rome, is the beginning of the decline.
Yes, in retrospect, this is... It's almost... It basically is a civilization-wide collapse. Many things were retained, but it's almost like if we were to be transported into the future, say 300, 400 years, and it wasn't like ever you could travel around the galaxy or travel through time however you wanted. They didn't have computers. They didn't know what a computer was.
Right.
It'd be almost like that. It's like a complete regression. So this is really the event that marks a fucked up world turn.
Okay. Let's get to it.
So first, we should probably talk about kind of the people who are involved.
Right.
The people who wind up assaulting and sacking the city of Rome were known as the Visigoths. The Visigoths were the western branches of a nomadic Germanic tribe of people who had been warring with Rome on and off over the 4th century. They're known as the Thervingi, or the Thervingian Goths. They're sort of an offshoot of that tribe.
Were there also times where they weren't at war and they actually allied?
Yes, their relationships varied greatly based upon circumstances. For example, they were often under invasion from even wilder, I guess you could call them barbarians, tough people from the east coming out of the steppe.
Were Visigoths friends with the Gauls, or would the Gauls be one of those tribes that are attacking that you're referring to?
It's almost like waves. So the Gauls came first, and they were pushed west by the Goths. And then the Goths are getting pushed west by the Huns. And other it's like civilizations flow out of regions, and the stronger ones push the weaker ones out of their territory.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And whether they were at front... Yeah, so if there was a really nasty war going on, they'd stop invading Rome. Sometimes Rome would be scared of the people that were beyond them, and they'd team up to fight them, and... That was basically how the relations with all of the tribal barbarians in Europe was kind of going at that point in time.
I love how they're called barbarians. You think of just savages.
Yeah, but it's just anybody who's not Roman.
Right.
Yeah. The Visigoths, and this is new for a barbarian tribe, and it's another one of those end of an era kind of turns that are in this story. This barbarian tribe were also Christians. They weren't pagans like most barbarian, especially Germanic tribes were. But the difference is they were Arian Christians. And the Arian heresy, as the Orthodox Christians of Rome would have seen it, was that Jesus was not the same entity as God the Father and the Holy Spirit. He was separate, and he was created at a later date, at a point in time.
Right.
Whereas God the Father would have existed apart from time. Jesus is subject to time in the Arian heresy somehow. But so Christians...
But we know that can't be true because...
no. There's no God.
Yeah. Dong, yeah. Okay, we got it.
Yeah, the bong.
Yeah, picture church bell, and then me and Brad say some bummer
Generic,
shit.
Depressing statement.
Yeah, the world's gonna end. Yeah, go.
We'll next time we'll get you with it.
Yeah, I think we just did that recently, so...
Yeah.
Pagans.
Yeah, so generally they were pagans. And at this point in time, there was Roman pagans and Roman Christians. So the pagans didn't like them because they're Christians, and the other Christians didn't like them because they're heretics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of conflict with the Visigoths going on over their religion. And in general, the Visigoths didn't throw away all of their barbarian customs. They still practice some of those. So it's they're kind of Christians, but the other Christians won't accept them, and the pagans think they're corrupted by the Christian influence to their paganism.
Like, these guys will, like, loot your city, but they won't touch, like, whatever's in the church.
Sometimes. That's pretty much everything about the Visigoths that you'll need to know in general. Let's talk a little bit about what Rome's like at this time. Remember Diocletian? The guy who put St. Vincent on the rack?
Yes.
Gave him that nightmare?
Well, he was just Vincent until he went on the rack, right?
Yeah, Vincent of Saragossa.
Thanks to the rack, he became Saint Vincent.
Yeah, amongst other things. But check that out in our last episode if you missed it. It's a good one.
Well, last episode was Nero.
2 episodes ago when
There
we
you
did
go.
the rack.
But yeah, I remember Diocletian.
Well, Diocletian made 2 very drastic changes to the structure of the Roman Empire during his reign. First, he rejected the traditional title that the emperors held of princeps, meaning that's the first word of a longer title that means first among Roman citizens, first among equals, ostensibly, the emperor is.
Yeah.
And that title was, like, ceremonially granted through the Senate. So they could pretend that, like, some semblance of the Roman Republic carried on.
Yeah.
But it didn't. I mean, they was still an autocrat. Yeah, Diocletian did not accept the title of princeps, and instead he would only accept being referred to by the title domine, which was the title that slaves in Roman society were supposed to use to address their masters. So, like, everybody in the empire is Diocletian's slave, according to him. And it's at this point that the Roman style of leadership sort of transitions from this fake dictatorship to a much more familiar style of absolute monarchy. And this would continue in the East along its entire lifetime. They were absolute monarchies. They were absolute rulers with hereditary, transmission of the titles, etc.
Domine. That's funny because when I was reading the word, I thought it was domine. Domine.
Yeah.
Is it domine or domain? And you're like, domine. Piece of shit.
I didn't say that.
That's how I felt.
I mean, what do you want me to do?
Gently tell me.
I thought that's what I did. Next time, do you want me to, like, write it on a sheet of paper and slide it across our our fancy desk here? In 285, it had become clear to Diocletian that the empire had become so massive that it could not be governed from one location. I mean, you're talking about it stretched all the way in the east, almost button up against China, all the way to England.
Yeah. His territory?
Yeah.
And parts of Africa.
Yeah, at the Roman Empire at its biggest was massive. So what he did is he split the Roman Empire into 4 different kingdoms.
Okay.
Or empires, all governed by an empire each. But it didn't go so well. And it never was stable. There was always, like, big giant problems going on, and it ended up fusing into 2 separate empires. The Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire. And that change was set in motion by Diocletian.
Okay.
So we're looking at the Western Roman Empire, not the Eastern for the most part, in this particular story. Because that's where Rome's at. The Byzantine Empire is headquartered in Constantinople. Oh, and none of this was stabilized, really, until around 310, when Constantine took over. He was able to reunite the empire again.
As one?
As one.
Nice.
Around 310. And although, as you'll see later, it didn't last that long. He split it up again later. The main player, the real star of this one is going to be Alaric the First. And Alaric was the leader of the Visigoths that would, in the end of this, sack Rome.
King Alaric.
King Alaric.
First.
Yep. When he was a child, he was a member of the Thervingian Goths, and the Goths were suffering setbacks and defeats against the Huns. And the Visigoths were consequently pushed southwest into Roman territory.
Right, you were explaining.
Yep, the waves of meaner and meaner people coming out of the steppe pushing each other away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those Huns.
Yeah, we'll get to them.
Bastards. That's going to be a good one, too, the Huns.
As you may have guessed, Alaric was of noble birth within the Visigoth tribe. He was part of the nobility.
Okay.
So even though, he's not exactly in the center of the world, he's still, not a commoner.
Is he an aristocrat?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was imagining.
And at that time, the Visigoth tribe could call their homeland right around where present-day Romania is now. It would have been the Roman Praetorian prefecture of Illyricum.
Which is, everyone kind of probably knows that's how Romania got its name, was Romania, which means land of Rome.
Did you know that for sure?
No.
No, I assume it has something to do... Actually, I think it's because the Romani people live there.
That's just another lesson from Uncle Ron.
Yeah. Uncle Ron. I have an Uncle Ron.
You have two.
I have two.
Everybody's got it. Everyone that can hear the sound of my voice has an Uncle Ron. That's me. You need some advice, feel free to tweet at us and I'll give you some answers back.
I got a few things I need to know. I'll tweet you later.
No one that is employed by the Dinner in Hell program is allowed to contact me on this. Only Twitter followers.
I'll DM you. Now, Alaric comes down to us in history first as a federati, which were groups of tribal soldiers that were organized and led by their own tribal alliances and delineations, but directed by Rome. So they'd say, all right, we have to go fight this battle against the Huns, so you bring 20,000 of your people to help me fight them. That would be federati.
What do you think's in it for the tribal people? Are they granted peace in this portion of land for years?
Yes. They would say,
we won't...
okay, as long as you have these troops under our command, you can live in the area you're living, and you won't have to pay us a completely crushing debt in taxes. You'll only have to pay a sort of crushing amount of taxes for us not to destroy you.
Okay, cool. I was wondering that.
Yeah, there were benefits to doing it, and you were sharing in the defense of it. So, you were responsible for helping to defend Rome, but if you needed it, chances are Rome is also going to help defend you. No. Well, at least in the past that would have been true.
No, imagine you're sitting in the camp of the Visigoths or the barbarian camps in the woods of these tribal soldiers and stuff. Imagine you're sitting in your camp in the woods, fire's going, all of a sudden friggin' messenger comes on his horse, and he's like, hey, tomorrow, it gives the message and it says, tomorrow we're fighting the friggin', the Carthaginians. Mm-hmm. You have to just get up and be like, okay, we fight tomorrow. It's not like you can whenever you watch even when you watch Game of Thrones or if you're just reading about history, it's whatever they say is psh, that's it. There's no asking why or saying you sure. It's always this is how
it's an order.
Yeah,
but it would have been
get your tongue cut out.
It would have been more right now, get this many people and start moving to here, and I'll see you there in 14 days or some shit. Yeah. They would have had to do a lot of marching.
But it's man, like, you don't ever know when, like, if you're not like in touch with like the Roman people, you're just like out doing your thing, hunting deer or whatever. You're in the woods.
Yeah. And then some like official comes riding, and tells you what's up.
With like, probably has like a couple guards, maybe white horses.
Yeah, like their
Shiny.
boss, like the person who's in charge of the Federati.
A royal letter.
Yeah, but for the most part, they didn't have a ton of oversight, and they didn't have Roman citizenship.
Right.
But, I mean, they saved on their taxes. They lessened, what it would have cost them to live there. And they received some share of Rome's protections, and they didn't really get persecuted if they were doing their fair share in the eyes of most Romans. So, it was sort of a live and let live kind of scenario.
I got a weird feeling that Romans probably took some produce that they may have grown. I imagine. Like, what if they were like awesome at growing like tomatoes?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, we want a freaking crate of tomatoes as well.
I bet that's how a lot of groups would have paid their taxes, would be in food.
Like, all those pumpkins, we want at least half those pumpkins come fall.
We got jack-o'-lanterns to make.
We got jack-o'-lanterns making pies to bake.
Well, see, the shitty thing about Rome now is for most of their history, their diplomacy has always been extremely aggressive whenever they're strong and capable, and then friendly when they're weak.
Right.
And now the problem is they have all these huge tax demands on all of the people that they're exploiting. Inequality is horrifying. There's foreign invasions that Rome's no longer militarily strong enough to deal with because there's been so many problems within the empire internally that they have this aggressive foreign policy because they don't have a choice. They're being invaded constantly. But they don't have the shit to back it up with.
Right.
So it's kind of just, it's sad to watch the system eat itself.
It's okay, man.
You see bad people get put in charge of these massive institutions. Like the Roman Empire.
Right, like everything's going well, all up to this point.
Yeah, I just think of all the architecture of Rome that's so famous. Like the all-white buildings with the columns, like Rome.
The way the sun kind of just dances off the white buildings and like clay rooftops.
Yeah, and it seems like it couldn't possibly be gone.
Like a beacon of hope in a land of shit, Eurasia.
Yeah, but you realize it's so fragile. It's so fragile, and it's almost guaranteed temporary.
It's like when you burn down the sugarcane crop, grow it anew. You gotta take that thing down, you gotta burn it down, and then guess what? It grows anew, and the ash fertilizes the dirt. So Rome, hey, you tumbled, you crumbled, but hey, everything's all worked out to today. I don't know what the fuck I'm going with that. Trying to get out of that lightly.
Yeah, I don't know. So Alaric first shows up to us as one of these Federati, and he's serving under the Emperor Theodosius I and under somebody named General Stilicho, who's also a barbarian.
Okay.
They together crush the usurper Eugenius. It was at this battle, leading 20,000 Goths, called the Battle of the Frigid River, that the real final pagan revival for the Roman Empire was crushed. This rebellion that Eugenius was kind of carrying on because he decided that he was going to be the Roman Empire and piped up and started a civil war. He wanted to revive the pagan aspects, like the old culture, the old Greco-Roman kind of Hellenistic culture. He wanted to revive that, and this put an end to that. That never really got going on any sort of large scale again after that, which is another sort of interesting check mark when you're watching the Roman Empire collapse.
Because the guy comes in, takes charge. He tries to go back to the times that it used to be like. He wanted to make Rome great again.
Yeah. Yeah.
God darn it. I don't want to do the rest of the show. This episode's too grim. It scares me.
It's fucked up history, baby. It's what we do.
Hey, we read a book on foreshadowing. This whole episode's a foreshadow. You'll see.
Foreshadow for your fucking life. Well, so Theodosius, the emperor who was in charge of the East when Alaric was getting on with his work in the Roman army.
Yeah.
When he died, he split the empire again between his son Arcadius and his son Honorius. Honorius took over the western half, and Arcadius took over the eastern Roman Empire. Now, after the battle and the tumult throughout the empire after Eugenius' defeat, Alaric expected to be rewarded handsomely for his part in stopping the rebellion. He thought a fair reward for this would be a generalship over a regular Roman army. That's what he wanted.
He wanted to be in charge of his own fleet.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the way the world was, Rome is like the pinnacle of culture.
Right.
It is the place. And all Alaric really wanted was to be part of Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you'll see, it's him getting shafted by Rome that causes all of this.
Now, when you say Alaric's army fought along with Rome, did you mean that he was part of like the tribal people, the barbarians? Did they wear the same armor as Romans, or did he fight as a Roman soldier? He
fought with his own barbarian.
Right. They fought along with the Romans.
Yeah, they were technically part of the Roman army. They were a unit in the Roman army that was making the attack on Eugenius.
So now he's coming to the Roman. He's like, "Look, man, like on this deal, please make me a freaking general."
Yeah.
Of my own people.
Yeah, look how good I did. And it cost him 10,000 men because they, in his mind, they sort of abused him. They made him bring 20,000 people to fight, and then they kind of made only his group like the frontline fighters to take the brunt of the casualties.
That's what it was like, I just freaking totally pictured that. Like, yeah, if we're going to send the Goths.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So he was pissed because when all of that shook out and everything kind of settled back down, they didn't give him shit. They didn't even really publicly give him any credit.
Could you imagine being a Roman soldier and them saying, okay, this guy's going to be your general now? And you're a Roman soldier, and you're like, you're freaking kidding me? I'm taking orders from this guy, this barbarian guy?
The Roman general Stilicho was a barbarian.
Okay.
They already had barbarians.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure they probably didn't love it if they were Roman citizens, but it wasn't uncommon. There were a lot of Germanic people that had positions of power within Rome.
Cool.
For now.
It's nice that Rome was open to accepting like people of their other skill from different cultures and walks of life.
When it suited them. Yeah. When they could use them. But they very rarely granted them citizenship or rights. So, well, after being denied his promotion and getting that hypothetical slap in the face, he returned to Illyricum with the Visigoths, and they elected him king. So they just said, congratulations, like, we vote, and now you're the king of us. Which is a weird way to get a king, but I guess it's the best way to get a king.
King Alaric the First.
Yeah, that's when he becomes King Alaric the First.
This is what you're going to do if you're listening right now is after the show, Google King Alaric. Go to the notes. You can find the name Aleric. and you find a black and white image of him just sitting there with his mustache. My God, of all Visigoths, I would have to say he's the most George Harrison.
Yeah,
right?
see, I thought he kind of looked like Jim Croce.
What's the?
He should be in America. He looks like he should be in the band America. Like,
yeah.
I rode through the Alps on a horse with no name. It felt good to invade Italy. Yeah, some shit like that. Yeah, he looks like he could be in America for sure. That big, bushy, dark mustache. Haunted eyes of a singer-songwriter.
Like, gather around. No, it's okay. He's kind of like the. Well, we later find out that he was actually kind of the sacking that he leads.
Yes.
It was actually one of the most humane sackings as far as like hurting people. So this guy's kind of like the nice king. Hey.
Yeah, kind of like the nice barbarian.
And he dies at a young age. So at this age that we're talking about, he's got to be in his 30s. This is like the prime of his life.
Yeah, see, he dies in 410. We're talking about right now around 395. So yeah, he's 35. 25. Right?
In 410 he was 40.
In 410 he was 40, so 400 he'd be 30, 395 would be 25.
God darn it. That's why I put my trust in you.
But you know who the president is then.
Which country? Go. We don't have time. I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, so 395, he's pissed, he's got shafted, so he musters a force, and they begin to march toward Constantinople. He's going after the big dog initially.
Let's do this.
Yeah, but early on it became clear, like, he didn't quite have the chops to start fucking with the Byzantines. So then he's just like, and sort of veers off into Greece.
Yep.
Now there, the sackings that he was unloading were not so gentlemanly. Like the port of Athens was completely destroyed. Some say he completely destroyed Corinth, Megara, Argos, and Sparta while he was ransacking through Greece.
They took anything that wasn't bolted down.
Yes. He also destroyed some religious artifacts that had been around since the Bronze Age, from prehistory, that had been continually worshipped that entire time. He destroyed them.
What an asshole.
Pagan. Yeah.
You know, and I take all that hippie shit back. This guy was a jerk.
Yeah, he was a hippie like Charles Manson was a hippie.
Dude's got an X drawn on his forehead, running around. He's got a lyre on his back. He's like, promise after we sack this freaking town, I'm gonna freaking pull out my lyre and I'm gonna freaking play it for you guys, and you guys are gonna be crying before I'm done.
Like, you don't even understand. The whole world is love, man. You dig it? I'm nothing but vibes. I'm your god now. Do you understand?
Holy shit. I was just about to sing Look at Your Game Girl. Stop crying, you're gonna be crying. You ever heard that song? Manson song? So. Oh, it's good.
I've heard a few of them, but I can't remember.
Look at Your Game Girl. It's really good. So we've heard Brad the Impaler just do his impression of Charles Manson. They're very good, Brad.
Thank you.
Audience,
I don't know if that one's good. I haven't heard his voice in a long time.
Audience, your thoughts on his impression? Nice. See, they like it.
Okay. Thank you. So basically, because I guess this was over being dissatisfied with his job, this is kind of like a late antiquity falling down with Michael Douglas.
Where you going? I'm going home.
Yes.
Clear a path.
Or like a not funny Office Space. Oh, so eventually, Arcadius, who was now the emperor in the East, remember when we split it?
Yeah.
He in order to placate Alaric, he gave him command of all the troops in the Praetorian prefecture of Illyricum, the place that included Romania. This was designed to placate Alaric.
Okay.
However, he wouldn't be content with that. He would use his new position, however, to resupply all of his Visigoth soldiers from the Imperial armories. So now his army has cutting-edge gear.
Right.
Best technology in the world.
They had like sticks with like metal tied to it.
Yeah,
axe.
now they're basically they're equipped exactly the same as Roman legionaries.
Yep. Let's talk. Can we talk about a Game of Thrones episode?
Sure.
It's the episode where the dwarf Tharion Lannister and Bronn. Mm-hmm. It's like episode 8 or 9 in the first season, and they get surrounded by a tribe in the woods.
Yeah.
And it turns out the frickin' Lannister army says, "Okay, yeah, you can fight with us, sure." And they're like, "We want frickin' swords, though. We want real steel, iron." And it turns out like Brad's just saying now is like, dude comes out with like 2 freaking battle axes. Like everyone's stepped up their freaking weaponry. That's what freaking King Alaric did for these guys.
Yeah. Yep. He was able to resupply them with the best shit. So now they're even fiercer. So I mean, I don't know if placating him was a great idea, because almost immediately he wasn't content with that anymore. It seemed like this dude really, really wanted to be a Roman. Like, he was in love with the idea of it.
Yeah, because he's probably hung out with Caligula's freaking party palace. He's like, this is awesome.
Yeah, he'd see all that cool shit.
I want to be Roman.
Like, how incredible the Republic was. But yeah, he made his people call him Alaricus. So he would he Latinized his name so he would seem more Roman.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he went by, Alaricus. So he wanted to get closer to Rome, so in 401 he invades Italy, hoping to force an appointment closer to the city. But he is eventually defeated. On Easter, the general Stilicho attacked. Now they're both Christians. So Alaric assumed that they weren't going to attack him on Easter. He fucking did, and he beat his ass. So he was able to stop that first invasion into Italy.
I imagine like Alaric's army is like all resting, thinking like, oh, we got Easter off.
Yeah.
You know, like there can't possibly be a fight. And they're like hiding eggs and stuff for like the children that are part of like the... And then they get surprise attacked while they're doing like... Never mind. I was gonna do like Easter bullshit, but it was going nowhere.
Like, I imagine like a dolly shot behind like a little Visigothic girl running through a meadow of like clover, searching for like a hidden egg. Yeah. And then it pans up to a hill and there's a roaring group of men that you couldn't hear somehow until this very moment that tramples her.
Close up of her hand, she drops the basket.
Yeah.
And then you just hear the thunder of steps and you just understand that she's been trampled, but you don't see it.
The hoofbeats in the distance.
Close up of her hand, she drops the basket. You hear the sound of hooves. You understand that she's now trampled, but you do not see the child die.
It's in slow motion. You just see at the end of it, after the cavalry charge has passed, you just see the empty Easter basket rocking back and forth on the ground in the wind. And
like in the shot of her running, when you're doing the dolly cam behind her, like you kind of notice what kind of footwear she's wearing. It kind of like just you get it's something unique, like a red shoe.
Yeah.
And then after the dust is cleared, you do see like one red shoe like upside down, like just flung.
Yeah, it's all slow motion too.
God damn it!
Fuck, that's gonna be cool. We should make that. Anybody who wants to put up, say, hundo mil for a movie, get at me.
We got ideas.
Start shooting soon.
Dinner in Hell Productions.
Yeah, and this defeated the advance, but it caused problems because Christians in Rome didn't like it. They didn't like that he did some underhanded bullshit on Easter. They weren't happy about that. And, Alaric, again, is butthurt about getting shafted by the Romans as he sees it. Even though he's in the middle of attacking them, he's still pissed they didn't treat him fairly. So he's gone again. He's back to Illyrium, but he still has beef. Like, he's still got gripes with Rome.
Let it go, Alaric.
Yeah. The second raid, though, had far-reaching implications. The seat of the emperor had to be moved again, and it's at this point that the empire receded from Britain forever. After this, though, Stilicho, who was a barber, and Alaric became a barbarian. What the fuck?
He did like extractions and amputations as well.
After this point in time, though, Stilicho, who was a barbarian, and Alaric became friends. They were close friends. As a matter of fact, when they were mobilized as Federati to go fight someone, which didn't actually end up happening, Stilicho, on his behalf, got the Roman government to pay out a massive fortune to cover Alaric's mobilization costs.
Awesome.
Which he wouldn't have otherwise got unless Stilicho wasn't swinging his dick around the Senate a little bit.
And by dick you mean like penis?
Yeah, a symbol
so
of his power.
It's picture him swinging it around the Senate.
Yeah, we call that helicoptering.
Okay, I got it. I'm trying to visualize it.
Honorius, though, at this point in time, had a very anti-Germanic turn, and he purged his government and lots of the country of Germanic influence. I mean, this involved executing, many people, including women and children. He was having barbarian, and Federati women, men, and children just drug out into the street from their houses and cut down with swords right then and there.
Bastard.
This also included Stilicho and his family. So, boom, killed his friend. There's another gripe for Alaric. And at the same time, removing probably the last really great general. Yeah, this purge caused 30,000 Gothic men to flee straight to Alaric, who immediately crossed the Alps and began assaulting the Roman Empire again.
Seems like that's a pretty decent way to attack the Roman empires from the Alps, via the Alps. The Carthaginians did it as well.
Yeah, well, you got two options. It's over the Alps or
cross water.
Yeah.
Okay, Brad, take me to 409.
409.
After death.
Alaric surrounds Rome. Now, at this time, this was a bloodless siege. Hunger was the weapon. He was able to cut off all supplies going to Rome.
Mother effer.
Yeah.
So many freaking armies have done that. It's bullshit.
It's pretty goddamn effective, though.
Okay, we're starved. You win.
So, what is really indicative of what's going on here is Rome, known as the Eternal City, is surrounded by foreign invaders for 4 months, and the rest of the empire is not capable of putting a stop to it.
There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, in the upset after this sort of persecution of the Federati, after all of them were slain, everything was going so crazy, they couldn't do shit about it. And, as you'll see, Honorius, the ruler of this massive governmental institution, only cares about himself. So he's likely not even that concerned about what the fuck's going on in Rome as long as he's fine over in Ravenna.
Right.
Which he is. They have huge natural fortifications and shit like that. So he basically doesn't even give a fuck what's happening to Rome, which is, the downfall of monarchies. Every once in a while you get one who's a total dog shit.
Yeah.
And Honorius was one of them. So 4 months, they starve the citizens of Rome until the Senate of Rome, which is like the city's leadership, decides to surrender and pay his ransom, which is 5,000 pounds of gold.
Man.
Yeah. 30,000 pounds of silver. 30,000 pounds of silver is a lot of money on its own. 4,000 silk tunics, 3,000 scarlet hides, and 3,000 pounds of pepper. Sick of bland food.
Right.
Yeah.
Like black pepper?
Yes. Also in the deal, and strengthening Alaric's numbers to a great degree, was the freeing of 40,000 Gothic slaves from the city of Rome.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did the slaves not join up with Alaric?
Many did.
Right.
Many did. And his terms for a peace with the Empire this time, in retrospect for what we'll see happen, again seem kind of reasonable. Especially considering the persecution he's facing because he's a barbarian. What he wants is a territory within the Roman Empire to govern as a Roman official that's 200 miles by 150 miles and on the coastline somewhere. On top of this, he wants the title of Commander-in-Chief of the Roman Army. That's what he wants, and then he'll have peace with the Roman Empire. He's already got Rome. That's what they paid him off to leave.
Right.
So now he's marching on the rest of Rome, and he says, hey, Honorius, I want this, and then we can stop fighting immediately. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's my price. So Honorius, the little bitch boy he was only concerned with the fact that he himself was safe in Ravenna and would not agree to those terms. So they kept fighting.
Because he's safe over where he's at.
Yeah.
Letting his men die,
Yeah.
letting blood shed, blood spilled.
Yes. So Alaric, his move is to turn right around and go straight back to Rome.
Okay.
Yeah, and he lays siege to Rome again.
Want to play?
However, this time he didn't want any shit from them. He didn't want to take all of their wealth.
Yeah.
He wanted the Senate, and he compelled them, and they agreed to appoint the prefect of Rome, the Roman Empire, and say, this is the real Roman emperor now. This guy who was the prefect of Rome.
Yeah.
But he didn't even, in this facade, have any power. Alaric was controlling everything.
Yeah. Why did he want him to be named emperor? Was he going to just kill him? So I would imagine.
No, so that he can use it to legitimately then claim all of the territory once he defeats Honorius, he's thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, so then he can say, well, no, this guy's the real emperor from Rome the whole time. He should be in charge. But he's completely subjugated to what Alaric's telling him to do. He has no power.
I was imagining that he wanted him to be named emperor so they could have him killed, and then there'd be no emperor. Like, he'd just be like, oh, I'll be in charge now. Your emperor's dead. I don't know.
He didn't even want that. He didn't want to revolutionarily change the structure of the Roman Empire. He just wanted to be a prominent part of it.
Yeah.
That's it. So he's got his other empire, and then they fight. They fight with the Roman Empire for 11 months. 11 months he's carting around this fake emperor with him and waging war. After 11 months, he decides maybe now's a good time to negotiate. Maybe I can get that territory. Right?
Yeah.
So he just says, never mind, this guy's not the emperor anymore. And I want to negotiate with you, Honorius, on how we can end this civil war again.
What's Honorius thinking? No thanks.
You would think that this time he'd be open negotiating. 11 months of civil war after failing what would be probably a much wiser solution and cave into that territory he wanted. Alaric's obviously a good leader. Why not let him be in charge of Rome? It's not like he wants to bring Rome down. He wants Rome to be glorious. He just wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And he's crazy enough to fucking burn down huge portions of it to try and force his way through the door.
Right.
Yeah. But, so Honorius agrees. He says, hey, I'll meet you up outside of Ravenna 12 miles and we'll hash this out. We'll talk about it. But Honorius has an advisor that is from a different Gothic family. And their families, Alaric's and this guy, whose name is Sarus, are like the Montagues and the Capulets, or like the Hatfields and McCoys.
Okay.
Like, they're like hereditary enemies. Like, their families have always hated each other.
Okay.
And Sarus shows up instead of Honorius and attacks Alaric and his contingent of people who came to the meeting. It was like a backstab.
Yeah.
It failed, though. It didn't kill Alaric, and he made it back to his main force, which, at this point, when he realized negotiating's waste of time,
Yeah.
again turned around and went straight back to Rome. This time, however, there would be no siege.
There would be a sack.
Yep.
The sack.
August.
The big sack. He's like, look, I got this friggin' sieging thing in the bag. I can get this sack done in hours. Okay, so Rome is sacked.
Yes, on August 24th, 410. Reports sort of differ, but either because there wasn't really anybody around to defend it, because this would have been behind his own sort of lines, like his own. Ostensibly, the person he was just traveling with was the real emperor, and he was his general. So there may not have been really any defense. The other story is that there was treachery. Slaves, probably Visigoth or Gothic slaves themselves, would have opened up the Porta Solara, the gate,
Yeah.
and let Alaric in.
Right. Because they knew Alaric was just going to come in and remove their masters. Kill their masters.
Yeah, and more or less, either way, it was Alaric versus a defenseless city. I mean, he didn't suffer casualties taking Rome.
Yeah, there's probably just street police.
Yeah, just people trying to defend themselves in the street, which wasn't going to go well against an experienced veteran army.
Yeah, probably hid under the bed.
So for the first time in 800 years, a foreign force entered Rome.
Whoa.
I mean, if you think about modern cities, I can't think of really a single one that's been 800 years without being invaded by someone.
Makes me think of when you watch the movie Red Dawn and the freaking Russians come in. Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
High school. You would never think of that, of Russians paratrooping in.
Even objectively now, I don't think it would be possible that anybody would invade America.
Because you just shot down before you could get over the ocean.
Yeah, but 800 years, it would have seemed impossible that anyone would invade Rome. The Eternal City, they called it. America hasn't even been around for 300 years.
Right. If you ever get the opportunity to travel to Europe and you go to these big cities, you realize how freaking old Europe is.
And Paris, one of the great European cities, was invaded by a foreigner as recently as the 1940s.
By? What was
Nazis.
it? Nazis.
Yeah.
We have plans for addressing Nazi topic soon on the season.
Berlin.
On the show.
Berlin invaded simultaneously by the Allies, the United States, the English, the French, the Soviets. Berlin invaded on both sides. Every major European city, even a ton of Russian cities. I mean, Moscow didn't fall in World War II, but it did in 1917 after World War I.
Yeah.
Every major city. None of them have an 800-year streak going right now. I can tell you that much.
Freaking Romans.
Yeah, it was an achievement, but it happened then. They plundered the city of everything that they were capable of carrying. This included a silver ciborium, which sort of looked like a giant chalice.
Yeah.
That literally weighed a ton. It was a 2,100-pound silver chalice. That was a gift from Constantine. They took that. They basically took everything. In 3 days, his forces, I couldn't get any exact numbers on, but they were definitely in the tens of thousands. So tens of thousands of people for 3 straight days, literally just grabbing everything that wasn't bolted down.
You know what I heard when you said that one of the theories was that slaves open the gates? Mm-hmm. I heard this is dinner in hell, so once in a while you're going to hear awful shit. Yeah. I'm about to drop something. Mm-hmm. But the slaves would rape the master's women after, like, they were, like, freed by the invasion.
Yeah. Yeah, there was
yeah. They, like, do it. It's awful.
I mean, like we've mentioned a couple of times, this is generally portrayed as a comparatively civilized sacking of a city.
Yeah.
Because as Christians, it's different. Christian barbarians attacking is different than pagan ones. The Christian barbarians, at least in the case of the Visigoths, they had respect for the Christian institutions in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes. 2 basilicas did burn to the ground with lots of people inside.
Yeah.
But there are stories of, there's churches where anybody that was in there, they granted sanctuary. Mm-hmm. There was one story of a woman named Marcella who purposely lived like a life of celibate poverty, like as her, like to try and be a really good person to God. So when the Visigoths came into her house, they started mercilessly beating her. Like, where's your fucking gold?
Yeah.
Just kicking the shit out of her and beating on her. And she threw herself down, like, at their feet and just begged them in the name of God not to, like, rape their daughter. Like, her daughter that was staying there.
Yeah.
And, like, it happened to warm the hearts of these particular Visigoths, and they took the daughter and the mother and took them to one of the basilicas where they weren't killing the people.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh, well, see?
But then other people, they just cut down in the street or mercilessly raped or sold into slavery.
Fucking bastards.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't really information on, like, how many people died or how many people were displaced, but there were large reports of populations of refugees from Rome as far away as the prefecture of Africa. So they were going to a different continent to try and find some peace and safety. Mm-hmm. There was less structural damage than a typical sack, too, because of their Christianity. They didn't destroy the Christian churches most of the time.
But, like,
some of them they did burn to the ground.
I would think that, like, if Alaric wanted to live in Rome and be part of Rome, he wouldn't want to, like, ruin Rome.
Yeah, that too.
That's what made me think.
He's
like, don't do that one. I really like the architecture of that one. I like looking at that one. But this shitty one, yeah.
Yeah, he was sacking a city that he loved. It's almost like sad and tragic, except it's still not something that he has to do. So you can't really be that sympathetic with him over it, I guess.
Like if you sack Detroit, you'd be like, keep the Rensen.
Yeah.
I like that. It's kind of nice the way the sun bounces off of the reflection.
The Fisher building.
Yeah, down with that.
The Fisher built. Yeah, exactly. The pagans did not get any respect, though. He went into the tombs and scattered the ashes of pagan emperors just on the ground.
It's like fucking
destroyed them and shit.
Shaking the clay pot.
Yeah, destroyed all kinds of pagan monuments. And I imagine most pagans were getting cut down in the street. Many, many Roman citizens were sold into slavery by the barbarians. And the emperor's own sister, Galla Placidida, was captured. Procopius, the historian, records a story where upon hearing that Rome had perished, Honorius collapsed into his seat. He was shocked and absolutely appalled at the news. He said something like, I can't believe it. He was just eating straight out of my hands. And the eunuch who delivered the news had to correct him that it wasn't Honorius's favorite pet chicken named Rome that had died, that it was the city of Rome that had perished at the hands of Alaric and the Visigoths. Honorius was said to have gone like, whew, because he was so glad his favorite chicken was still alive.
Oh my god. Don't do that.
Yeah, didn't give a fuck that the eternal city just got sacked and set on fire.
When you bust into my room after I just fed my chicken, you bust in and you're telling me Rome has perished. First thing I think is my wonderful pet's dead.
Yeah.
But now you're just telling me it's the city way over there? Gives a shit.
In a different day and age, we may have gotten a series of really angry tweets from Honorius.
Right.
So after this, the Visigoths continued their rampage through the rest of the empire, basically unabated, until Alaric got sick and died a few months after the sack. So it's like he got his massive revenge. And like so many people destroyed the thing he loved in a way.
Age 40.
Age 40.
So everything you've learned about Alaric up to this point has been under the age of 40.
Yep. His brother-in-law, whose name is Ataulf, is elected the new king of the Visigoths, and they move up to southwestern Gaul and found a Visigothic kingdom there. Near France. Ataulf married Galla Placidida along the way, the emperor's sister, but he died sort of shortly after that.
Placidida was the woman that was captured?
Yes, the emperor's sister.
Okay.
And the Visigoths went on to have, at least in one case, good relationship with the remnants of the Western Roman Empire before it fully collapsed, because they allied to fight a gentleman who we'll definitely mention again in the future, Attila the Hun, when he attacked.
I'm kind of scared to do his.
You think?
I'm not prepared mentally.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
But that'll be a good one. People around the world, people who would have been aware of Rome anyway, were absolutely stunned when news of this reached them.
Of course.
The Eastern,
how did you even believe it?
Yeah, the Eastern Roman Emperor, who at this point was Theodosius II, declared 3 days of public mourning in Constantinople, and was quoted as saying, "If Rome can perish, what can be safe?"
No one is.
When you see the eternal city go down, it's like all the cards are back on the table in a way that doesn't really feel real to you all the time.
Reset to zero.
Reset to zero. All cards on the table. Anything can happen. And every once in a while, something will happen that'll remind you of that.
Yeah.
There's no numbers on how many people were killed or scattered or sold into slavery, but there is numbers on population. And 10 years after the sacking, the population of Rome was 40% lower than it was before, about 300,000 people less in a 10-year span. That's a pretty big population reduction, especially for a civilized, gentlemanly sacking.
Right. God, I wish I had the information in front of me for Battle of Cannae. How many Romans were killed then?
If I had to guess, I want to say something like 70,000.
Like, that's a pretty good size percentage of the population right there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess a civilized, gentlemanly sacking means you don't exterminate the people of the city. I guess that's what it means.
Yeah.
Because this was not pretty. Not as pretty as Alaric's mustache, which was very, very nice.
Or his lyre playing ability.
Yeah. He really will,
This is all alleged. It's all allegedly.
Yeah, but I assume he used it as a tool of seduction and whatever the equivalent of a late antiquity frat house would be. He knows, like, some Dave Matthews that'll play.
He grows his fingernails out, so he's like, cling, cling, cling. Come here, child. Listen to my song. I am King Alaric.
Now he's like Ravi Shankar.
I promised everyone here I will live on for till I'm an old man creating more music for you. That's a promise from King Alaric. You will see me until I'm 80.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he died at 40 from the flu.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, but what this showed to the people outside of Rome was that they did not have their shit together. There was a lack of faith generally in the empire to handle its affairs, protect its territory, and, ensure that the society continues. There is severe internal disruption, and they were vulnerable, and for the first time also appeared vulnerable. The upper classes stopped bothering to fund any public institutions. They stopped maintaining monuments and roads. The sacking was claimed as sort of a mark of victimhood by both Christians who felt victimized by the heretics and wanted to crush the barbarians over it, and pagans who just got their city and their pagan emperors' ashes scattered and their monuments burned. So it intensified religious conflict in the country. The constant usurpations and uprisings that had taken place in the century before this had weakened the empire so extremely to outside invasions that it was already beyond the terminal point for the empire. They were already done. And this just marks the beginning of the terminal descent.
Jesus, what a closing line. Well done.
Well, so now that we've fucking shined a horrible mirror up to the world and talked about the depressing end of the high of civilization up to that point, the highest they'd ever reached, preceding a big dip in human culture and technology, society.
How long ago was it that Rome was declared done?
I think there were some people who kept trying to sort of use the name, but in any meaningful way, the Western Roman Empire did not exist 60 years after the sacking took place.
So 470?
Yeah. It was completely gone by then. The Eastern Empire, like we said, that went on for another 1,000 years until the Ottoman Empire took Constantinople in 1455.
1,500 years ago.
Yeah, 1,500 years ago.
1,547. I'm just saying, because I'm a math nerd.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's it for Alaric and the sacking of Rome. Take from that what you will.
Yep.
If you want to tell us to stop doing such sad shit, you can tweet us at dinnerandhellpod. You can email us at dinnerandhellpodcast@gmail.com. Everything's archived on dinnerandhell.com. We are on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher. You name it. If there's podcasts, we're on that shit. Don't forget to subscribe and rate. It helps us out a lot. Ron, great show tonight, man.
We had a blast.
This crowd they look incredible. They've had great energy
They've been
all night long.
attentive.
Yeah. The band.
Band's killer. Everyone knows that. Thank you, band.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our listeners at home. Have a great week.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Ron.